No nanny could survive the millionaire's twins. They broke every rule, pushed every limit, and drove away anyone who tried. But when a black woman stepped into their world, she wasn't just fighting unruly children. She was fighting something much darker. The whispers in the mansion, the cold stares from those who didn't want her there, and the hidden weight of a prejudice no one dared name. What she endured went far beyond babysitting. The question is, how did she succeed where everyone else failed? Her name was Lila. She wasn't rich, powerful, or born into privilege. She was simply a hard-working black woman trying to make ends meet. Every morning, she walked through the bustling streets of the city with quiet determination, carrying not just her bag, but the weight of her family's hopes. Lila had cared for children all her life, believing that patience and love could soften even the hardest hearts. But the world around her didn't always see her kindness. It saw only her skin. When a job opened in the mansion at the top of the hill, people whispered. The pay was unmatched, but so was the risk. Dozens of nannies had come and gone, unable to survive even a week with the millionaire's twins. Some left in tears, others in anger, all carrying the same story. The children were impossible. To most, the job was a curse. To Lila, it was a chance. She needed the money, yes. But more than that, she wanted to prove something, not just to the world, but to herself. What Lila didn't know was that stepping into that mansion would test her in ways no one could imagine. The children were only part of the challenge. The real battle waited in the shadows, in the looks, the whispers, and the unspoken walls of racism that had pushed away every woman like her before. And yet, she walked up those marble steps, unaware that her life and theirs was about to change forever. The first day in the mansion seemed almost too quiet. The marble floors gleamed, the chandeliers sparkled, and the air carried the kind of coldness that money could buy. Lila stood tall, her hands folded neatly, reminding herself to breathe. She had faced hard jobs before, but this was different. The twins, with their piercing eyes and mischievous grins, studied her like hunters circling prey. Hours passed, and every moment tested her patience. They screamed, threw food, slammed doors, and laughed when she tried to calm them. But Lila didn't break. Not yet. It wasn't just the children that made the job unbearable. The mansion itself seemed to whisper with prejudice. The housekeeper eyed her with disdain, muttering under her breath whenever Lila walked by. The neighbors who visited glanced at her skin before they looked at her smile. Even the millionaire, himself polished and powerful, offered compliments that carried hidden barbs. "You're stronger than you look. For someone like you." Each word was a reminder. She was tolerated, not welcomed. Still, Lila pressed on. She cleaned up shattered vases, soothed tantrums that shook the house, and refused to give in when others would have walked out the door. But as the days stretched into weeks, the tension grew heavier. The twins devised cruel little games, locking her out in the rain, hiding sharp objects in her path, and once whispering, "You don't belong here," with a smirk that didn't sound like a child at all, but an echo of voices they had heard around them. Lila knew this wasn't just mischief. This was learned behavior. Somewhere, someone had taught them that people like her were less, that her pain was entertainment. And the worst part? The mansion applauded it in silence. Every cruel act the children performed was met with excuses. They're just spirited, or boys will be boys. No one defended her. She was alone in that house of wealth, trapped in a storm of privilege and prejudice. But even in the darkness, there were cracks of light. One night, as she tucked the twins into bed after yet another exhausting battle, she caught a flicker of fear in their eyes. Beneath the arrogance, there was loneliness. Two children desperate for love, but poisoned by the world around them. And in that moment, Lila made a choice. She wouldn't just endure, she would fight, not with anger, but with a strength that no cruelty could erase. She didn't yet know how much harder the fight was about to become. Because in that mansion, standing her ground would come at a cost she could never have imagined. It happened on a stormy evening, when the twins decided to push her further than ever before. They locked themselves in a room and screamed until the mansion shook. Lila rushed upstairs, heart pounding, only to find the door bolted shut. Inside, she could hear crashes, glass breaking, and their terrified cries masked by stubborn defiance. She begged them to open the door. No answer. Finally, she forced her way in, and what she saw froze her in place. The children had climbed onto the balcony ledge, tiny figures silhouetted against the lightning. They laughed, daring gravity itself, unaware of the danger. Lila's body moved before her mind did. She grabbed them both, dragging them back inside as thunder split the sky. They fought against her, kicking and screaming, calling her names. They could never have learned on their own. Words meant to cut deeper than any blade. For a moment she felt the weight of every insult, every hateful whisper she had endured in that house. Then came the final blow. The millionaire appeared, furious, not at the children, but at her. "What did you do to them?" he demanded, his voice dripping with accusation. To him, she wasn't a savior. She was the problem. Standing there, soaked in rain and trembling from exhaustion, Lila realized the truth. No matter how hard she worked, no matter how much she sacrificed, the world inside that mansion was built to break women like her. But even in that crushing moment, when every reason to leave screamed at her, Lila made her stand. With the twins clinging to her in tears, shaken by the near fall they finally understood, she looked the millionaire in the eyes. Her voice was steady, unshaken. She wouldn't walk away. She wouldn't let their hatred define her worth. Because sometimes survival itself is defiance. In the days that followed, whispers filled the mansion. The twins, once feared for their cruelty, began to change. They no longer saw Lila as just another nanny. They saw the woman who had held them back from the edge, who stayed when others had given up, who showed them a love deeper than the walls of privilege had ever offered. Slowly, their defiance softened into trust. Their laughter, once sharp with malice, began to sound like children again. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. For Lila, the victory was bittersweet. She had proven her strength, her patience, her unshakable will. Yet the memory of that night lingered. The insults, the accusations, the truth that even her heroism could not erase the color of her skin in the eyes of those who judged her. She stayed, not because she was blind to the injustice, but because she knew that leaving would mean surrendering, and surrender was something she could never allow. This story is not just about a nanny and two impossible children. It is about the weight Black women have carried for generations, expected to heal wounds they did not create, to endure storms they did not summon, and to survive in spaces that were never built for them. Lila's defiance was not just survival, it was a quiet revolution. A reminder that strength is not measured by wealth or status, but by the courage to stand when everything pushes you to fall. The mansion may have tried to silence her, but her story speaks louder. The question is, how many more women like Lila must stand alone before the world finally learns to stand with them?